Charles Robinson, great reporter, senior NFL and investigative reporter for Yahoo, always kind enough to join us for a couple moments. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you've been keeping a little busy, right?
Yeah, I've
that breath.
In all honesty, like I've spent the last. I'm working on a Redskins column right now, and so I've been writing it for about the past hour, and I'm slightly panicked that in the last hour I haven't been, other than like responding to text messages on my phone, I haven't been keeping up with Twitter. I'm scared that,
wait, you didn't hear? So Garoppolo, wait, you didn't hear Garoppolo is going to get traded to Cleveland? Oh, you want me to break it for you?
Yeah. I'm wondering if like I'm walking into, hey, Romo just got released 15 minutes ago.
I will keep you updated. Don't listen. If it falls on you, you tell. Send them to me, and I'll take the brunt of it. You know what? Let's get to the Redskins real quick, because first and foremost, listen, if they hired McCloughan knowing that he had a drinking problem, and now you fire him and you're using that as an excuse, and the guy was able to perform his job in an acceptable manner, that's a horrible look by Daniel Snyder. That has lawsuit written all over it.
I'm gonna straight up. I'll give you a kind of a preview of the way I'm approaching this right now. There's responsibility on both sides. There always is. They like I said before on Twitter. These are two sides that went into this with knowing what they were getting into with the other side. Scott was told by people around the NFL, his friends, and it's something I talk about in this column, that they're a fiercely loyal fraternity to Scott.
Yes.
And I know they told Scott, hey, you need to understand Bruce Allen, you need to understand the Redskins situation and know what you're walking into and whether or not this might be the best situation for you to reclaim your career, not only from the standpoint of who you're going to be dealing with, but also the type of personalities you'll be around from a social perspective. Meaning, these are guys that fit that NFL cliche of we work tirelessly and then we race to the bottom of a bar glass to blow off steam.
Okay.
I mean, that is a reputation that is out there. And so to me, I think there's issues on both sides going into this. But my biggest takeaway from this is, and what I have a problem with is, they are straight assassinating this guy on the way out the door. Okay, the Washington Post stuff that I have read is ungodly. The things that, calling him a functioning alcoholic, saying he's showing up to work drunk,
that's
coming
libel,
into the locker
man.
room. That's
slanderous. You know that.
My God. Like and here's my thing. Like, not only are you saying that, but what absolutely sets me off on this whole thing is they had the audacity to put out a public relations statement in which Bruce Allen says, "We wish Scott success in his future endeavors. The team will have no further comment on his departure." Let me tell you something. I highly doubt that everyone in that building is wishing Scott success in his future endeavors, and I damn well will say I do not think that was the only comment they were going to have on his departure, because that is not what I'm reading in the Washington Post. And the kind of quotes that I'm reading in the Post from my journalistic experience do not come from some low-level, hanging on to the bottom rung of the personnel department or coaching staff kind of situation. Those are, razors to the throat statements that I think only come out if there are people at the highest levels who have these conversations and there is a green light to go ahead and kill a guy. And I think that is how this feels.
Then why in the first place, and again, it's Monday morning quarterbacking, you're going in not blindly. They knew what they were getting themselves into when they hired him a couple of years ago. He's not even gone through 2 years out of a 4-year contract. Then why hire him in the first place?
It's that, funny thing is, it's not even Monday morning quarterbacking, because when it happened, I remember, to be up front, I was surprised that Scott got a general manager job. I mean, he went really from the wilderness right into a general manager job, which is just not something you expected. Now, he has insanely elite talent evaluation skills. Guys across the league who are very good at their job say that about Scott. They're like, he is so good at picking and identifying players. He'll miss like other guys, but on balance, his draft board will be as good as anybody in the NFL. And so to me, when this happened, the reaction was, man, it's two sides that need each other. I mean, badly need each other. The Washington Redskins are in a bad spot. They need to churn that roster. Things are going south quickly with RG3, that they are going off a cliff, and they need someone to come in and quickly help them pump talent onto that roster and turn it over and get it right before it gets really, really bad. And at the same time, Scott needed someone to throw him a lifeline. There were not a lot of lifelines out there for him. And in the NFL, there's 32 teams, 32 head coaches, essentially 32 general managers. There are not a lot of those jobs out there. So to get one offered to you and have the chance to go in and, hey, even if it's a 2-year thing, even if it was the full 4 years, whatever, to go in and restock the Redskins was something that was very valuable. It was a very, very valuable chip hanging out there for Scott.
Charles, I said this during my opening monologue, and I'm curious to get your take on this, and I want to ask you about Cousins as well. I'm just wondering if, you always, when you take a step back and you look at a situation, you can kind of maybe see things, maybe you gloss over things initially the first time. Then you take a breath, you take a step back, and you say, okay, kind of makes sense. Let me connect the dots. I'm wondering, Chris Cooley comes out on the radio on an ESPN affiliate that's owned by Daniel Snyder, Redskins Radio, says what he says, and then no one in the front office goes to bat for this guy. To me, that's a major indictment. And I'm wondering, is that kind of the straw that broke the camel's back there?
I think for Scott, and I will be completely upfront. I've texted Scott. I've reached out to Scott and got no reply. I think I'm one of many who have reached out to Scott and really had no reply during this entire thing. I think that Scott absolutely, from what I've been told by those who are close to him and are talking to him on a more regular basis, during this thing, is that, Scott was extremely upset about that. Like, he was mad that, because Cooley he's employed by the Washington Redskins de facto. I mean, he works for the, Redskin radio station. Yep. I mean, for a guy to come out and say that and there to be no response, the message you are sending is green light. Yep. It's green light. Yeah. You want to talk about it? It's okay.
Yeah.
Silence can be an endorsement. You know that.
I know. Listen, this is not going away anytime soon. And I also said, you've got an owner who's owned the team for 18 years. Now he's in search of his 5th GM. Then you start to say to yourself, well, Garcon takes the money, Deshaun takes the money. Now you kind of know. I mean, when a guy's not at the combine and a guy's not available for a player to talk to him, and the player's got to go to the owner to try to force his hand at a trade, it just tells you everything's collapsing. At the end of the day, last one on the Skins, Cousins he's going to play out the year. But, I mean, can he still force a trade?
I mean, he can't force it. He can say, the only way he could really force it is just to say, I signed my tender, but I'm going to sit out. So I signed it, but guess what? I'm not showing up, and I'm not going to show up when camp starts. But again, that's another thing that is emblematic of, I think, what is wrong with this franchise. You said 8 head coaches, 5th general manager. They're going on to their 5th general manager. And guess what? Kirk Cousins is your 16th starting quarterback in 18 years.
And by the way, the quarterback that's played 2 years, a full season, 2 times, 2 straight years, other than Jason Campbell about a decade ago.
Right.
So, I mean,
and
man, I'll tell you,
it's a mess. It is as much of a mess as it could possibly be. And I'm telling you right now, if you're Jay Gruden, I hope Jay Gruden's got his head on a swivel, because guess what? You're the next. You're the next guy who bears responsibility.
All right, talk about a team that everyone's thinking, all right, talk about bearing responsibility and the move that the Cleveland Browns. Listen, I know people right away were coming out and screaming at the mountaintop yesterday. Again, you got to calm down, sit back, and see what they actually did. I guess my only question with what the Cleveland Browns did is, with all the draft picks now, with eating some of the money, getting the draft picks, with all these assets, if you will, moving forward, it tells me that no matter what, they're going to try to make a run to get Jimmy Garoppolo, or is this all a smokescreen?
I think that they are interested in Jimmy Garoppolo. I guess it depends on what your definition is of what's a run. Are they going to just pile up a ton of picks and say, we got to have this guy? the thing is, from the time that I spent with the Browns, there is a singular, overwhelming focus in that building of this new regime to collect assets. You got to get assets, draft assets. We got to get as many draft picks here as possible. Now, to them, that's ammunition that obviously can be used in a lot of different ways. If that means, okay, we've identified our quarterback and we got to use these assets now to go get him, I think they will do that. But again, I think there's more long game to this than just Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think this is even going to be a one-season thing. I think this is, as long as they'll be there, this is sort of a sign of what they're going to do. They're going to do everything they can possibly do and get as creative as they can to try and pile up as many draft picks as possible. And, knowing that, hey, when we do get our quarterback, whether it's a guy we got to pay immediately or we got to pay him down the line, we're going to use these draft picks the way the Patriots use them, as cheap labor, and shuffling guys out. Now, I'll say this about the Browns. As creative what they did, there's still a lot of people out there who I trust in the NFL who are very smart, who think that there's no way that this regime is going to get it right, that they're still going to fail and fall flat on their face. We'll see.
That's unfortunate. Honestly, being objective, they deserve to have eventually, competitive football and have a winner, because it's a great football town. Even when I did radio up there in Ohio, they love football. They deserve to have a good franchise. But again, you're right. Some people are waiting for the other shoe to drop, which is really crazy. Is everyone's screaming about the Glennon contract, but yet look at the money that the Texans gave Osweiler, and it doesn't even last 2 years. And now you're looking too with the Jets now. See, everyone's linking Cutler to the Jets, and my thinking is, well, then I heard reports about Trevor Siemian. Well, if John Elway is going to give up on Trevor Siemian, and John Elway, the last time I checked, knows something about quarterbacking, what does that tell you about what he thinks of Trevor?
Yeah, it tells you something. Right. It does. And I'll say this about Elway. People say, well, Elway's not perfect. Obviously, he did want Osweiler back, but the truth is, Elway wanted Osweiler back at $12 million.
Yeah,
he wanted him back at a far cheaper, cuttable number. So, I think Elway, that was more of like, maybe we'll take a risk, we'll take a chance, we'll see what happens. I wouldn't feel secure wanting to bring in a guy that Elway is casting off at this point. I will say that I don't think Elway's perfect. But yeah, it's just, Osweiler, that whole thing, it's funny to me that all this stuff comes about and we end up talking, and me personally end up talking about how Cleveland purchased a second round pick. But man, there's a really, I think, low-key – people have come in low-key on the focus on the Texans, the fact that they had to pay a second-round pick to clear trash off their – a trash contract off their ledger.
And I'll tell you this, and you would know this from being inside and this, let the lesson be learned right here. You're not signing a guy ever again without actually looking him in the eyes or meeting with him. Think about this. Right. It's – yeah. The franchise got to take a hit for that one. Hey, last one, because I know you're up against that deadline on that Skins article. Tony Romo. Listen, the anticipation was at 4:00 he was going to get released, and then all of a sudden Dallas is like, well, wait a second, right? Everything's getting kooky out of whack. Let's see if we can possibly trade him, get something back for him. Now you got a team like Denver and Houston that can kind of sit tight. Romo still's got to be willing to renegotiate that contract as well if he wants to get traded. At the end of the day, where does Romo land?
I think this is all going to end up being what we thought it was at the start. I really do. I believe that Romo is still going to get released. I think what happened was the media came out, and I was part of that media contingent that came out and said Thursday, he's getting released Thursday. I don't think the Cowboys took that well. I think there were people internally who were like, you're not going to tell us what we're doing. We're not just going to, just cut this guy because you say we're going to cut them. Do I think that certain things that were floated out there, certain scenarios that were floated out there were floated to potentially try and kickstart the trade market? Yeah, I personally, I think that 3-team trade, I know everyone's pinning that on the Redskins. I think Dallas did that. I think Dallas floated the 3-team trade because I think Dallas wanted to get something out there into the air to see if it caused someone to step up, and namely, the Broncos or the Texans to step up. And I'm telling you, every indication I got yesterday morning from the Texans was they're like, look, man, don't just paint us in as a front runner with Romo. And even the Broncos were like, yeah, we'll see. Look, hit us up when he's off the roster.
Exactly,
That's not
right?
exactly
That's not a ringing endorsement saying we're going to go and right, he's going to be playing for us. At 30 seconds, I don't know.
They got to cut him.
I know. Yeah, listen.
Everybody knows that.
I know. You're right. It's Jerry Jones just still wanting to put his stamp on it. Don't tell me how to run the house. I get you.
And hey, don't discount Stephen Jones. I think, Stephen Jones is, Jerry's one thing, but Stephen Jones is an animal to his own right. And I'm telling you, I think there is a little bit of an attitude when that all came out that caused some people in the building who are in power there to step back and go, wait a minute.
Yeah, that classic. Yeah,
we're releasing him.
Yeah, the tug and war there. All right, see if you can answer a couple of these in 30 seconds. Adrian Peterson back with Minnesota, or does he pull Favre and he goes to a reverse and goes to Green Bay? Why not? They need a running back.
I don't see him back in. I think Minnesota I don't think Minnesota wants him. So I don't know if he ends up with Green Bay, but I would be shocked if he ended up back in Minnesota.
These three quarterback, who has the best chance of starting next year? Cutler, Kaepernick, or RG3?
Cutler.
And then
Cutler's just got more to work with. He's got his downside, but he's still, I think, a starting quarterback.
I think the other two are done. And I know you kind of answered this. Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be with the Patriots next year? He'll be the backup. I know it's a loaded question. I know I'm not going to get into Instagram. I'm not going to waste your time with Instagram posts.
Listen, I'm going to operate by logic and the belief Tom Brady has more than one year left. I think you deal. I think Jimmy gets dealt. I cannot believe that they're going to walk away from draft assets.
I know. I'm thinking the same thing. It reminds me of the Seinfeld episode when the guy was talking in first person. Jimmy doesn't want to be in New England anymore.
yeah. But you know what? Bill does it his own way.
I know he does.
I will say that you can never rule out that Bill knows that there's Patriots logic and then there's everybody else's logic. And you know what? The Patriots have 5 rings.
I know. Hey, it works. Who are we? Who are we to judge? All right, my friend. Listen, great stuff as always. I know you're up against it. Look forward to seeing that article. You'll have that posted up on Yahoo sometime today. Yahoo Sports.
Yeah, next couple hours.
All right, good, great. We'll talk soon, Charles. I appreciate it. Great stuff as always, pal.
Always my pleasure. Let's do it again.
You got it. Take care of yourself, Charles Robinson. Great stuff. So much stuff to get into.